Alright, so in this section we're going to talk about how to add some entries to your classes and go over some of the different ways that you can do that. So you just want to go ahead and select the show, select the class that you want to go ahead and do entries for. This one we haven't added the show number, so that's why that warning comes up, but this is just a sample. So anyway, just make sure you're in accepting entries mode. Then you're going to go down to adding entries. If this is your first day of the show, you can, like if this is the second day and most of the entries are going to be the same, you can copy those over from a previous show. Even from another show from a couple of weeks ago, you can do that as well if you wanted to, or one from last year. So that's totally up to you, and you can check and uncheck horses you want to bring in, but that allows you to do it in like a bulk way to do it. So for this purpose, we're going to go ahead and add entries one at a time. We're going to select that. Down the bottom here, you've got your horse, rider, and owner. That's where, as you start filling it in, it'll populate the top row right there. If it's not in the database, you can look for it in the NCHA records here if it hasn't been entered in the show previously, or you can add a new record. If it's a great horse or maybe something that isn't on NCHA system, you can add it using this button, and if it's registered by AQHA, it'll show up the information there with that. And same thing for owners or riders. You can add them in there and it'll put a flag on them saying that they weren't on there if they're not an NCHA member. So let's go ahead and get started. You go ahead and add a horse, and you can see it pulls up iridescent from the database. So all we do there is just hit tab and it's going to automatically put that horse into the top line. Now we're looking for the rider. So Jeffrey Sheehan is the rider. We're going to go ahead and tab over. Now it lists Brumbar Ranches as the owner automatically here. They used to be the owners, but the owner now is Teton Ridge, so we're going to override that and put in Teton. Okay, now you can either select S for the subclass if you want to go ahead and put that one in the senior. Obviously Spud's not that old quite yet. And then you can either just hit the add entry button, or you can just hit return on your keyboard. And then you'll see you come up with a blank screen to start your next entry. That entry is being pushed over into the classes column already. We'll show you that here in just a minute. So we'll go ahead and get a couple more entered now. Now here you can see there's multiple Casey Greens that have pulled up, two of them there. One is in Bishop, Georgia, one is in Perrin, Texas, and you can also identify them by the earnings. The eligibility, so we know that this is the Casey Green that we want, so we're going to go ahead and select that, and then you can hit tab, or you can just double click on it, it'll pull it over. Then what we're going to do is go back to the owner over here, and the owner has pulled up as XRC Ranch, which is correct. So now we can either just add the S or hit add entry. And just real quick, we're going to X out of here, and that'll show you the horses that you've entered so far. If you forgot to put one in the senior, you can do that here. So you can adjust that anytime. If you need to change a rider or an owner, you can do that here as well right now from this screen. These are the flags. So this flag here, if you hover over it, it's going to show you that the NCHA horse owner is listed as such and such. So that means that the owner record didn't match. We know that this is the correct owner, but NCHA's or our records from NCHA haven't been updated yet, so that's just a flag for them to identify that that horse needs to be updated. And then for this one here, it says the owner is not an active NCHA member, so that way, you know, they can just look out for that and make sure to update their records or check and make sure that that is a legitimate member. So here we have a horse that we've just entered and nothing came up down below. So what do I do now? Alright, so you can either search the NCHA records for it, or you can add it as a new record if it doesn't show up in NCHA, and it'll cross-check it with AQHA. So let's check the NCHA database first, and it says one horse records added from NCHA. Click OK, and there you have it. So then you just select it, and go back to the rider column, and continue that, entering. Now instead of clicking the add entries by entry, you know, one at a time, we're going to copy the entries over from a previous show, and a drop down is going to show up here if you've got some previous shows on here, and you can go in there and select from any of the opens that you've run before. It's got to be the same class, so this is the opens. So these are all ones where There's some data in there. So let's say this is the one that we want to copy over. We can either copy all of them over because they all automatically select, or if you say, well, Todd Adolph's gone home, so I'm going to take him out. I want to take that one out, and then you can just copy the selected. And then if you do that, it's going to automatically bring all those in over here. And then from there, you can go ahead and still, if somebody new showed up, you can just go ahead and add in, new horses, whatever, from there and do that. So that gives you some flexibility and not have to enter all the horses every day. You can automatically pull those over from a previous show. You can do it multiple times if you need to copy from multiple shows if you had to do that. See here. So we're going to copy all those over, and it adds them to the ones we already had in here. So that's a good shortcut tool, set up day after day without having to do so much data entry. Also, down the bottom here, you can see total entries, total cattle, and a running total of how many entries you've got assigned to that judge. So that allows you kind of a quick glance to see where your show is at, later on in the day. If you're getting close to 150 head of horses, or, need to see how many cattle you've used, you can see all that there. Okay, now that we've gone ahead and added entries in here, we've got 21 total entries in the set right now, ready to be drawn. If we decide that we need to change a rider or anything at this point, we can go ahead and do that. Just simply click on the drop down and select another rider for here. And it's going to do the same thing. Just pull up from NCHA's database and you can select the one that you want in there. Same thing for the owners. You can select those as well and change those, and the horses as well. You're going to see the red triangles over here. Those are just warnings. So, hey, something didn't quite match up or whatever. Owner is not an active member. Obviously, we're in January right now, so some of those ownerships haven't transferred over yet, or the records haven't updated with the new membership. So don't worry too much about those, but you can check and see what the warnings are about by either clicking on each one or just hovering over them, and it'll tell you what the warning is for. Also, subclasses, you can go ahead and make sure that you've got all the right ones in there. If you need to add some, take some out, we're just generally doing that here. You can adjust that from this screen. We're still in the accepting entries mode. Over here you can see your total class count again, 21 entries, 7 in the Senior World Tour, 63 head of cattle we're going to need, and then that should total amount that you've got set 1 right now, because we haven't gone into draw mode or assigned how many we want in the set. Down the bottom here we can either go back and add more entries, we can copy entries, or we can print confirmations. So right now we can print by horse or entry back number. If we print, it's going to pull up a PDF, and it's going to show all the entries in the class in alphabetical order by horse name. It's also going to show you the ones that are entered in the Senior World Tour and give you a quick countdown here. You've got 21 entries in there. It's got the date on there as well, so if you pre-draw multiple days, you can post these and show them with the dates on there and the class as well. Now, one thing to remember when you're adding horses' names or rider names and you're not seeing the horse pop up down here, before you just go to adding it or anything, just check your spelling first before you go to adding entries. So right here we can see we've made a mistake here. It should be NCAT, and then there it is there. The other thing here that you can see, if you're doing aged events, you can see the fold date right there, so you can automatically see if this one is eligible for a 4-year-old or 3-year-old or 5-6-year-old. It's just a quick reference there. Or if you're entering it in the gelding, it'll show there. Obviously some of the stallions, those records hadn't been updated if they recently gelded, but that gives you just some background on the horse right there for a quick reference.